Hello, lovely humans, and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, hi, my name is Jamie, and I am a wedding planner who loves to give away all of the wedding planning secrets here on the internet. So not only do we have weekly content here on YouTube, but in addition to all that, I have a whole slew of free or extremely inexpensive digital content to help you plan your wedding masterfully. Wait, my notes are all the way over here. You're not supposed to know I have those. So obviously, if you're new here, welcome. One of my favorite gifts to give to new people is a planning timeline. Check that out right here if you're interested. It's free to you. Tells you when you're supposed to plan everything in your entire wedding. Yes, absolutely everything. If you're not new here, hi. Does this leather jacket make me look cool for the new kids? Huh? I just hope it doesn't make too much noise throughout the video, because otherwise it's gonna drive me nuts. Now, I have done a previous video on your number one budget wedding killer, and if you haven't seen it, it's old and the quality's not quite up to snuff of what we do these days, but the information is still good. How many of you remember what the number one wedding budget killer is? Say it with me, class. Your guest count. Yes, thank you. I will link the video up here. But there are 3 other areas that I was like, we gotta talk about them. We gotta talk about them. They may not be the number one budget killer, but they're up there, right? And I got 3 of them. So if you are balling on a budget, then this video is for you. So without further ado, let's jump right on into it. Now, any of us can get bougie with any area of our wedding if we try hard enough. Anything could be a budget killer if you're not mindful of it, right? So, but these are the 3 areas, not 3 specific things, but the 3 areas that I see most commonly just draining the funds from someone's wedding budget, all right? The first one is going to be your venue. This really sets the tone for so much of what you do. And this is why I have a bone to pick with so many of those infographics on Pinterest and other locations where they say 50% of your wedding budget should go to your venue or reception or however they phrase it. I've done quite a few videos here on inexpensive wedding venues. If you throw a tennis ball at my channel, I'm sure you will find at least one of them. But here's what we kind of run into. I'm not glowing like an angel anymore. Come back. But here's what we run into when it comes to a venue cost getting out of control. And that is not knowing what you're looking at, right? Now, some people may opt for all-inclusive. Some people may opt for DIY. Again, whole video on this channel about that. So we're not going to get into the semantics of this or that. However, the biggest issue that I see when signing on to a venue or when booking a venue is not asking about any additional fees, not considering any of the supplies and or rentals they have on hand, and not going over their preferred vendors list before you sign the dotted line. When we're talking about fees, this can mean a whole lot of things for a whole lot of different venues. So it would be a good idea to ask, are there any potential costs that may come our way that we should be aware of, or any potential fees that we might be missing at the moment that should we make any changes or add on an additional hour, etc., that we would need to know of, and ask that before you sign the contract. In addition to that, it may seem like an incredible deal on an incredible space, but it has absolutely 0 rentals. Now, that doesn't mean that it's not going to end up being a good deal financially, but before you sign on with this venue, make sure you look into how much rentals are going to cost to fill that space for you and your guests to actually sit down, right? And have a table with a tablecloth on it. We're not reaching for the stars here. We're just going for basic dining etiquette furniture. Because what we could be looking at here is maybe you're looking at $5,000 for this venue, but it comes with absolutely nothing, and $6,500 for this venue, but it comes with tables and chairs and a couple other rental options. With 150 people, that could very much balance itself out. So it's always a good idea to double check those numbers, okay? And lastly, when it comes to the venue, this has nothing to do with the cost of the venue itself, right? But do they have preferred and or required vendors? Once you sign on to this venue, are they going to say you can only hire vendors from this approved list? Because that means that the venue's worked with them before, they vouched for them, they think they're great, but that also means that you're locked into whatever cost these companies charge. There's very likely little to no wiggle room. Of course, there's a difference between preferred vendors and required vendors. Walking through that with your venue would also be a good idea. Is there an option to bring in additional vendors, someone outside of this list for an additional fee? Just because they have a preferred vendors list does not mean it's an absolute death sentence for your budget. But knowing this question before you sign anything for a venue is smart thinking. That's why it's number one. The second area that I see budgets get out of control is consumables. So that could be food, drinks, or desserts for your wedding day. Now, food is actually kind of my least concern on this list. For the most part, I personally feel like The food budget is very self-explanatory, right? Like, it's just like, you get it. Cost per head, if you have a lot of people or the cost per head is a lot, there you go. And very rarely do I see people really going overboard on dinner, or if they're doing a brunch wedding or whatever. I rarely see the meal as being excessive. I rarely see the appetizers as being excessive. That's not something I see a whole lot of. So as long as you're cognizant of the cost per head and how many guests you're gonna have there, most of you are gonna do absolutely fine in that category. Where we see problems though is drinks and desserts. It almost goes without saying, but in case you don't know, a full bar is going to be more expensive than beer and wine only. And if you guys aren't doing alcohol at all, then this conversation does not pertain to you, okay? A full bar typically includes hard alcohols, mixers, and garnishes. Beer and wine only is beer and wine only. You would be shocked how satisfied people can be with just this option, with just beer and wine, especially if you are building out a full bar on your own. So that means you're buying all the hard alcohols, all the mixers, all the garnishes. The cost starts to skyrocket. If you do want to have a full bar or a fuller bar than just beer and wine, I highly recommend that you go with a bartending service. Why? Because you don't have to buy every single bottle or mixer or garnish from scratch. They will provide that, and whatever they don't use at your event, they can use at another one. So we're not seeing waste and we're not seeing any excessive cost come alongside that. And then when it comes to desserts, the best subject of all time that we always love talking about here, be very mindful. If you are only serving one type of dessert, cake, just bear in mind that it may not please a whole lot of palates. There may be a portion of the guest count that is going to entirely pass on that. That's why we're releasing a huge surge of dessert bars or dessert tables in lieu of or in addition to a cake. The more elaborate you are with your dessert, whether it be the designs on the cake itself or the amount of desserts and the flavors that you are offering, that's when it starts to get really expensive. That can kill your consumable part of your budget very, very quickly. So in both categories, keep it simple, silly. You like the mom version of that? Keep it simple. Your guests don't need to have a giant spread to feel loved by you. You're already paying for their dinner and their drinks and their dessert. Keep it simple, silly. Narrow it down to 3 to 5 little mini dessert options and beer and wine only. And this will not only be a wonderful offering for your guests, but it will also be really, really nice to your budget. And then the last one, this one pains me a little bit to share with you, all right? But this category is decor. Here's the problem with a budget for wedding decor, especially those of you who are like into decor. The limit does not exist. There is no like, oh, I've done enough. For those of you who are into decor and into making things pretty or have like this big vision in your head because you've been on Pinterest too much, there is no stopping point. Like, it's not like, oh, I've ordered the desserts now, or oh, I've booked the venue now. No. Decor compounds on top of itself until you find yourself drowning in Etsy purchases and thrift store finds, right? If you have a guest bedroom, it's no longer there for guests, it's just there for wedding decor. We're talking things on your tabletop like centerpieces, plates, utensils, glassware, backdrops, lounge sets, or any other sort of Instagrammable moment that you were super excited about, which I totally understand because decor is one of my favorite parts of a wedding, but could also kill your budget. And before we get into this and you're like, but Jamie, I'm going to resell it afterwards. Will you? Will you? Because if you will, I mean, hats off to you, Godspeed. You don't need what I'm about to say. But if you were like me, not only is it difficult to just resell wedding stuff online, generally speaking, but in addition to that, like, if you have Target returns sitting in your trunk and have had them sitting in your trunk for an obscene amount of time, the likelihood of you reselling kind of plummets a little. I went to Wedding MBA a couple weeks ago and I got to sit down with Braun, the flower guy, who's absolutely incredible. So I have a whole video coming out with him on affordable luxury. How do we like pick and choose our winning moments? And this is the part where restraint is like really difficult for those of us who want to create a beautiful event. You have to pick your moments. Pick your centerpieces, pick a photo booth backdrop or like a photo IG moment, and skip over the lounge set. That looks beautiful, but is then commandeered by 4 of your second cousins who just stay there the whole night because they don't want to socialize with anybody else. Great that you gave them a crushed velvet terracotta cushion to sit on, right? But now it's become base camp for them. In the same vein as drinks and desserts, keep it simple and pick your wins. For you, that might mean bud vases instead of very large centerpieces. Or it could be eco-friendly disposable plates and utensils instead of the gold utensils that look so good in photos, but they're so expensive and nobody cares except for you in that one photo. Pick your win, okay? So instead, think about the moments that people are going to interact with very closely, right? Like no one's gonna interact really closely with a backdrop. They're going to stand in front of it. They're not going to examine it up close, but they will have that centerpiece directly in front of them. So maybe we splurge a little bit more on the centerpieces and we go super cheap on the backdrop. As long as it looks good in a photo, they're not going to care. Because the moral of the story here is, folks, that people will remember how your wedding made them feel, not how it looked. They might have those beautiful, intentional moments that visually stick out to them, or they might remember your wonderful signature cocktail, or your absolutely epic venue. But what they're gonna leave with and the memory that's gonna stick with them the most is how your event made them feel. So if you're balling on a budget, then be super mindful of these 3 categories. Ask all the questions before you sign with the venue, keep your consumables simple, and try to pump the brakes on that decor, hun, okay? I know it's really hard. I know it is. Been there myself. I know a wedding budget seems scary, and I know the entire industry is like, good luck sticking to that. But I'm here to tell you that if you're intentional and you're mindful and you're like, you know what you're doing before you jump into these conversations or these situations, which is why I'm making these videos, then you are going to be much more successful at sticking to that budget and still making an event that you and your partner and your entire guest count will absolutely adore. So that's all we have for this week's video, guys. Thank you so much for stopping by. If you need a wedding planner but can't afford one, please check out the master plan. It's this whole online guide that I put together to walk you through how to plan your wedding from point A to wedding day. If you are new here, hi, welcome again. We are so glad to have you. Be sure to drop a comment down below. This community is awesome and everyone's just gonna love on you, and I'm so excited that you're here. If you need additional support, there is tons of free or very inexpensive stuff linked in the description box down below. If you like this video, give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel for more tips and tricks for the modern day bride. And until next week, bye guys.